There we go. Excellent. Well, I just want to do a shout out prior to people coming in, those of you who are watching this, that this is one of those webinars where there wasn't a whole lot of pre-planning in the sense that we were intentional about what we were going to say. It happened so authentically, and I'm so excited to share this with all of you who are watching and who are going to be joining tonight, because really it does start with us. And, going back 5 years ago, no, 6 years. Has it been 6 years? 5, 6 years? I don't know. Time flies when you're a mom and an educator and going through all sorts of challenges. But it did start with us, Carly, and it started with us really knowing that we needed to nurture ourselves in a school district that had some challenges, and every school district does, right? So instead of us focusing on those challenges and focusing on what people were throwing at us, we said, okay, let's make this little room our haven. And I'm sure we'll be sharing this out with our third amigo that was in that office, but how do we help each other thrive? How do we make this fun and enjoyable and really lead with that? So I just am so excited for all of you who are here. Introductions. Again, let me just kind of jump into the slideshow. I'm Jeanette Simonson-Gorolnik. I've had the privilege of working with Carly Spina a number of years ago, being along on the journey with her as I shifted my journey to Colorado. And really just, we're both still so focused on the same thing that brought us together, which is how do we take care of each other? How do we take care of our environments? She'll tell you a little bit more about how she shifted recently, but in shifting to work for Thrively, I now get to share this message out across the nation and really just try to empower our profession. So thank you for being here today, and I'll turn it over to Carly for a minute.
Awesome. I'm so excited to be able to do this with Jeanette as my teammate and my thought partner and my life coach and all of the above and so much more. My name is Carly Spina. I am an educator through and through. I have some nice photos of some smiley faces there of a group of students that I had one particular year, and you can see they're all wearing their lab coats because we really wanted to make sure that they saw themselves as scientists. So that's that photo. But I was an EL teacher, an English learner teacher for many years. Across several grade levels. I was a third grade bilingual classroom teacher, multilingual instructional coach across 8 schools, pre-K through 8th grade. And I recently did make a shift. I am now working for a nonprofit, the Illinois Resource Center, and we provide professional learning and thought partnership and collaboration for educators and leaders across Illinois and beyond. But I'm also a mama, and I wear all these different lenses, right? And all of these different kind of pieces have influenced my work and what I do. I'm also the author of the book Moving Beyond for Multilingual Learners that was published last year. So I'm excited to share a little bit about that this evening as well. And yeah, so I'm excited. So if you are here or if you're catching the replay, we would love for you to share your thoughts and your takeaways using the Thrively hashtag that you can see there on the screen, Strive to Thrive 22. So we would love for you to share out your thoughts, your ideas, things that this will spark for you and your work.
Awesome. All right, so this is a real quote, Carly, isn't it?
Yes. This is
yeah,
very real.
I just wonder too, and we do have a number of attendees. I will go ahead because it's a small group, and I love when it's 10 or under. I will ask you if you want to be promoted to allow to talk. If you don't, that's fine. You're taking this in, you're on your phone, you're multitasking like we all do. You can decline it, but please join us. But in the chat, let us know if you've ever said this. And Carly, tell us a little bit more about how this quote came about.
Yeah, so I think over the past few years, I think we've all kind of talked about how this has been just a very huge, very long season of like prolonged trauma, like as a collective, right? And we truly have not still had time, I don't think, to really process and unpack all of the things that we have gone through as a profession, as individuals, as parents, as family members, as caregivers, all these different things. And now here we are. It's 2022 and it's October, but we're already feeling, right, this like sense of overwhelm. And we're hearing this from our colleagues, we're saying this ourselves, and we're all just kind of hanging on by a thread. And so again, like I know I've said it many times, and this is, I think this is just kind of like the language that floats in the hallway right now. Not only from educators, also from, you know, our administrators are saying it too, our kids are saying it, our families are saying it. So it's very real.
So you're hanging on by a thread. You're doing so many things. You've got lots of balls going up in the air. You're juggling work and being a mom and being a sister, being a daughter, being everything you are, and just trying to elevate and then this happens. Do you want to tell our audience a little snippet?
Yes. So I love going to conferences, y'all, and I had the experience. I was really, really excited. It was a conference that I had been wanting to go to for years, and I finally got the opportunity. And so I was thrilled. I had like months and months leading up to this of like just pure anticipation. And then the conference gets here, and I was so pumped. And my mom came with me for the journey, the little road trip that we did, and all of the workshops and the keynotes were just incredible. So I was super, super excited. And then I got to present at this particular conference 2 times, and I was like, yes, I was on cloud nine. I got to meet all these people that I had been following on Twitter for years, and I was just so pumped. So it was 3 consecutive days of awesome. Just like I was so fired up. But then, then there was one 12-second exchange that pretty much like all of a sudden this rain cloud hung over my head and would not leave. And somebody had said something to me, and it was a very, you know, it was a rude comment, and it took me by surprise, and I didn't even know how to react, and it was kind of public, and I completely shut down. And then I got mad at myself. After this exchange, I got mad at myself. I was like, oh, I should have said this. I should have said this. And I'm going, you know, like when you do that, you kind of have this exchange, and then you make up arguments in the shower, like, oh, I should have said this. And it keeps you up at night. It's one of those things. And I got so mad at myself though, because I'm like, Carly, you had 3 days that were so wonderful, and you're not even thinking about any of that. You're just hanging on to this one 12-second exchange that wasn't pleasant. It didn't feel good, but you're letting it kind of ruin the whole rest of the experience. Mm-hmm. And so I was struggling to process all of that. And so I went ahead and made a post online about it. And I was a little bit anxious because I didn't, like, you know, it's social media, it's the highlight reel, right? Like you post the good stuff, and you post the fun pictures. And I was like, I don't know if it was just for my own sense of processing what happened, but I posted on Facebook, and I was like, y'all, this happened, and I feel all these different things, and it doesn't feel good, and I'm struggling. Mm-hmm. And I almost didn't post it because I was like, well, who wants to see this? Am I going to be seen as like a complainer or something like that? Or like, you know, I don't know. Mm-hmm. So I kept debating, going back and forth of like, if I should say anything or should I just delete it or save it as a draft. But I went ahead and I posted it. And then Jeanette reached out to me.
Well, not only me, but did you see how many people? Not only connected.
I really couldn't believe, like there were a lot of people that I'm like currently connected to, that I talk to a lot, you know, and they were like, hey, you know what, like this happens to me all the time, or like, you know what, I am struggling to process, you know, something else happened to me this week. that kind of reminded me of this. And but it was like even people from that I haven't talked to in several years also chimed in, and they're like, hey Carly, like just keep going, it's fine, like brush
Love
off
it.
the negativity and just keep going. And I
Yeah.
honestly, like, I printed it out. I printed out the post with the thread, like all the comments, because I was like, I just need to hold on to this. Like, this is what I need to kind of keep me going.
But look what happened too. You mentioned it, just 12 seconds, right? And yeah, we all get there. We're all hanging on by a thread, and it's that one student, that one comment a colleague made. It's the one car that honked the wrong way, or you know, anything that happens, and you hold on to that. And what happens when we hold on to stuff, right? It sits, stews. I know you had a lot of feelings, right? But you were brave to put it out there in whatever way and fashion makes sense for you, and to see the elevation that came out of it. So I wonder, you know, there's some comments coming, and thank you for those of you that are posting. It's like, yeah, I want to support our staff in trying to learn new ways to do that. Somebody posted here that I'm trying to help my grade level team thrive. And so, you know, we're not coming from like, hey, here's all the research and here's what Thrively does. We're actually coming from a human experience that sometimes when you just put it out there in a thread and you say, hey, and you're a leader, right? I'm hurting. I had something happen. People see you as human and they try to take care of you. And suddenly you're like, I've got my tribe. Look at these, right? You can walk around with this booklet now of posts that people are like, Carly, you rock. Don't ever let your light, you know, go down, right? So I think that's interesting, but you still felt this way, right?
Yes. And I kept like beating myself up. Like I was giving myself my own guilt trip. And I'm like, gosh, like, why are you fixating on this one exchange, this one comment? You don't even know this person. This person has no decision-making power in your life. Like, you don't even know this person's name or where they're from or anything, you know, like, and again, like, it's just this internal battle of like, what is wrong with me? Why am I just, and I always say, like, I'm a positive person. Like, people will say that, like, oh, Carly, you're very positive, but I am still just hanging on to this. And like, I don't know, I was like, man, is this person's comment like going after my imposter syndrome that I battle with? Like, is it one of those things where like, is that why it got to me so bad?
Yeah.
So it was really helpful to just kind of sit down and talk through with you, Jeanette, and like, again, having a thought partner that will just let me kind of explore my feelings and kind of talk me through it, I think was really needed. And I didn't realize.
And for everyone who's listening, you guys, we planned on doing this webinar. She has so much, you know, to share, from her experiences with English language learners to, you know, the things that she's shared in her book. We planned this webinar, and then we got to talking. I'm like, hey, what happened with that post? And, you know, tried to lift her up like I used to do when she'd come into the office, or vice versa, right? And so I think some of you who are attending, you're sharing with us that you're coming to get strategies. And I hate to say it, but it's so basic. It really is the authentic exchange that we had. Let's plan a webinar. We got to talking and we're like, here's the webinar. This is actually the webinar. This is what we do naturally. So when we, you know, and I just kind of went back into, what if a student came up and shared with me something happened at home or whatever? Again, what do we do as educators? What can we do for our colleagues? And what can we ask others to do for ourselves? So tell me a little bit more about, you kind of honed in on when we got into a dialogue about these two pieces here. I think these are two strategies that psychologists, I hope, would say, yeah, these are real research-based approaches.
Yeah, I think honestly, having the kind of space to just like get it all out, number one, but like, and having someone just listen to me and like hear it all out. But then, Jeanette, when we were processing this, and again, like it happened very like while we were supposed to be, you know, working on a webinar, and then it came to this, it did very much like happen so naturally. You were able to say like, gosh, like, and Carly, that really was this. Like, it felt like this. And so when you named it for me, like I didn't have to like grapple with it. It brought me such comfort. And I like, and again, I can't really define why. I can't really tell why, but I'm like, okay, there's a name for this feeling, or there's a name for how I'm processing this. And it made me feel like, okay, like
Yeah.
I'm not flawed. I'm not like there's something wrong with me. I don't have to feel guilty. I don't have to feel ashamed of how I'm processing it. Like you were
Mhm.
able to name it for me. And then you also validated my feelings, and you were like, anyone in your shoes would be feeling this type of way. So like,
Mhm.
this is a normal reaction. This is a human reaction to this experience.
Yeah.
And so having you do those two things during our conversation, it really did. It brought me comfort. And just saying like, yes, this is what it is. And like, this is a normal human feeling.
Mhm. Well, and I think we as educators are so focused. I mean, especially new news out, right? I can't. We have this hope series that goes on, and I think we talked a little bit about this. But there's these 3 C's that Kathleen Beachboard talks about: what you consume, what you create, and who you collaborate with. Is it positive or is it negative, right? And so, it's hard to avoid the media and things that are happening that are negative. But I also think you said something important: giving the space. And so, for those of you that have chimed in the chat to share, you're looking for ways. Sometimes we get so focused on a task that we have to accomplish. And this goes back to transformative leadership versus transactional. So if you're an administrator, or you're on a grade level team that you want to take a leadership role on, create some space to not have an agenda,
Yeah.
to not accomplish anything other than hearing each other, and giving some space when it's needed. Because I mean, gosh, we all have a lot to do, and that's hard to create that space. We had a webinar to plan, weirdly enough, and I was like, no, it sounds like you need to talk. And then look what happened. So I encourage you guys to take some risks with the agenda, with the approach that you take to PD or these staff meetings, or just your time with lunch. Do you, at the water cooler or at the teacher's lounge, talk about this kid? No, all the, right? That's okay. You're venting. And then how do we get through it, right? So, but here's the thing too. I think that it's really important that those of you that are here, you're here because something resonated. You want to take this on, whether you take it on for yourself or for others. So, and I know, Carly, you coach others through this. I mean, you're a coach, you're an instructional coach. So I think this is really profound here. And I have a question for you. So if you were to coach yourself, is there anything you would do differently in that moment or after that moment? Throwing her a curveball, everybody.
Yeah, you are throwing me a curveball. I'm not sure. I honestly, like, if I could have paused, like, the old, like Zach Morris, like the timeout during the show, and all the actors would freeze, and then Zach has this like kind of monologue to the camera.
Yes.
Like, I wish I would have had that just to like, wait a minute, did this actually happen? Was this said? And then like, you have a few choices now. What are your choices? How are you going to respond to this? How are you going to, kind of let this roll or not let it roll?
Mm.
And like, it also reminded me of a lot of conversations that I've had either with students or my own children or my girlfriends or my teammates. Because again, like, this is a very natural thing. Like, people are going to say stuff to us that rub us the wrong way, whether the intent was there or not. Like, we're all going to face these moments. And like, I always said to my own kids, like, be like a duck and let it roll off your back. And like, when we were all kids, we were told sticks and stones, right? May break your bones,
Yeah.
and words will never hurt. Words hurt.
Yeah.
Words hurt. And you can take that and say, you know what, this didn't feel so good. And again, like, maybe I would have said something to the person who said the statement, but maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
But when you were coaching me through this conversation, you did a lot of listening, and then you gave me a lot of questions. You weren't saying, hey, Carly, I'm going to jump right in here and solve this for you and say, this is how you're going to navigate the situation in the future. You just ask me a lot of like reflective questions. And I think that's the beauty in coaching is the listening piece and the questioning piece. And I think that's like the crux of instructional coaching, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not always having the answers. It's just kind of letting the person process.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. I was having a conversation with a district today, and we were talking about listening with understanding and empathy, one of the habits of mind, and questioning and problem posing. And those two came up because, the district was saying, gosh, if we could just get, all the humans in the community, parents included, to do more listening with understanding and empathy, and to do more questioning and problem posing, to be more curious. I think then we would avoid people who are feeling what they're feeling to come and feel like they have to attack others, right? Or kids. The bullying that we're seeing in schools is real because they're hurting.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit more. You talked to what would you say to the person who hurts you, kind of led you to that, but something came out of that. And maybe it's on the next slide. Let me see. Maybe it's here. I'll pause here and see if you have more to add to that.
So this is a question that you asked me as we were, talking through this, and you were like, well, if you did find this person or this person revisited you in some type of way, what would you say to them? And it kind of struck me and I was like, oh, I don't even know. And so my first instinct was like, I would yell at this person and be like, why did you say that to me? And like, get really defensive. But then I was like, well, okay, but on the other hand, I don't know this person. I don't know this person's story. I don't know what kind of day they were having. I don't know how they were feeling. If they were feeling a certain level of stress to get, something else done in that particular moment. And so I was going back and forth between anger and empathy, but then back to anger because how it affected me and how it impacted me. And so I didn't have like a solid answer. And then you were like, but that's okay. That's okay to not have a solid answer right now because that moment is gone. Right. But
I fear for this person's life if you do see them again, especially if I run into them. No, but to almost do that, maybe role play it. And I can be like, and this is the thing that for those of you listening too, I think we haven't done enough role playing with kids too. Hey, somebody hurt you. What do you want to say to them? Or, somebody gave you a compliment. What do you want to say to them? How do we react in these situations?
Yes.
Got to have practice, right? And then, what would you say to a teammate or to a student who comes to you and says, somebody hurt me? And I'd love to hear what you guys, and I've allowed talking permitted if you want to come off mic or you just want to type it in the chat, but maybe you guys have similar experiences that you would like to share. Because we're all a learning community here. What would you say to a teammate or a student who comes to you and said, somebody hurt my feelings today, and it's really made me feel and some negative emotion? What is the best way to approach that? Now, number one, if you have a student or a teammate who's coming to you to tell you this, number one, pat yourselves on the back because you've already established that relational trust and you've already done a lot of work that they're feeling that they can come to you for that. So I think that's one of the things that I want to ground ourselves in. We're educators who make a difference. And I saw this just recently in a post. We make a difference every day because we listen and we ask questions, right? So Carly, do you have anything? Do you have any examples?
I want to hear if anyone has anything to share on this. What would you say to a teammate or to a student, or has something similar popped up in your life?
I was thinking, sorry, don't do my picture.
You're good. You're good.
Okay.
Of just asking that person, why do you say that? To kind of hopefully they would give you some background and information, but I don't know what you guys say to that.
Yeah. I think that's so, and what's so great about that simple couple of words is that you can memorize them. And when you're so caught off guard, it's like, oh, wait, I know what to say. Why did you say that?
Yeah.
It's like playing tennis, right? Just hit that ball back at them.
Yes.
That's a great one. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else?
Thank you. And I appreciate that so much because one of the comments after I had posted that kind of reflection on my social media page, one of the comments that I received was, you know, I've had this happen to me. So I really appreciated having so many people that I like respect and who are kind of doing the same type of work. Somebody said, like, this happens to me all the time. And so I always have a statement, like something ready to say or share, like in my back pocket. And I'm a language person. Like, I'm all about like sentence starters and stems to like have ready to go to help kind of begin some language expression. So I appreciated that. And then the fact that she said, like, I always have something ready to kind of present or like to share out or put on the table. I'm like, that's helpful. That's nice to like equip ourselves with that type of a tool, because when it comes from like, you know, it feels like it's coming from nowhere, like out of nowhere, there are going to be moments where we're kind of caught off guard. And again, that's kind of life, but it's nice to have kind of a go-to.
That pause and then the couple words, you know, that whole piece. And I think, again, practice it in the mirror or whatever. And I think authentically what came out of our conversation too, and I'd be curious if you all out there have a mantra or something, because I know I asked you, you know, and you came to something, which I think we could, honestly, I'm going to steal yours because it's perfect, but go ahead and tell us a little bit more about how you came to having this.
So this brought me back to when I was teaching my third graders. My third graders were the most inspirational group of kids in the world. And we were going through, you know, the stress of a third grade school year of tests and, you know, running the pacer in PE and, you know, all the different things that happen. But also some trickier stuff that, you know, happens outside of the classroom, things that they hear on TV, things that are happening in the neighborhood, all kinds of different things. And so we had like a SEL different like lessons that we taught, and we started to have conversations about positive self-talk. And the students were really like, wait a minute, so we're supposed to be talking to ourselves? And I'm like, well, yeah. And so we had to kind of get real with each other. I'm like, I talk to myself all the time, and they hear me. They're, you know, oh, Carly, you got to do copies. You got to do this. You got to go grab this. So they always heard me talking to myself, but I'm also like, I also have to talk to myself when the day isn't going well and I need to keep moving. Or if I need to like encourage myself to like get fired up on something, or, you know, whatever it is. And so I had to be a little bit more explicit with like sharing that kind of self-talk with them. And so after a while, they kind of leaned in a little bit and they're like, all right, yeah, we see that's a good thing to do. And so then we started to say, okay, like, what are the things that we need to know and believe about ourselves as learners, as scholars, as humans, as languagers, as bilingual scientists, right? All of these different lenses that we have and that we wear. And so we spent weeks like drafting. Kids wrote individual mantras for themselves, and then we designed a classroom mantra. And if you share the next screen, this is our classroom mantra, and I have it in my book, and it's in one of my chapters in the book, but this is just beautiful. So I want to read this. I don't like reading slides, but I am going to read this because it's so powerful. I believe in myself. I can do hard things. I can work really hard. I keep going when things are tough. I can get help when I need it. My teachers believe in me. They love me and care about me. I am important. I am loved. I will do amazing things. And so after, again, weeks of drafting and like changing stuff up, this is what the kids were like, this is it. This is the mantra. This is what we believe about ourselves and each other. These are the reminders we need to give ourselves every single day. And so we posted it all over the classroom. It was like posted on the ceiling tile above our heads. And they're like, okay, well, now that we have this, like, what do we do with it? And I'm like, well, we say it to ourselves when we need it. And they're like, well, when do we need it? So it became a really good kind of conversation, because I'm like, well, what do y'all think? Like, I'm turning it back on them. And they're like, well, before our next test, I think we should say it to hype ourselves up. I'm like, yeah. And then they said, okay, well, what about like, you know, when we get in a fight with each other at recess, we need to kind of reground ourselves in this, right? Like, remind us who we are. Like, yeah. So it was really cool to see like them being so reflective about, again, like what are those moments where we do have to like remind ourselves like we're good, we're powerful, we can do all these things, but also that we can get help because we're not perfect, right? We're not supposed to have superpowers and all these things. Like we should be asking for help. We have help available, all of us do. And so even like looking at this now, at this, you know, mantra designed by 8 and 9-year-old bilingual scientists, I'm like that part where it says, I can get help when I need it. When I went on my social media feed and I posted that and I was like, oh, you shouldn't say it, you shouldn't post it. But I did. I was so relieved that I did because it was me in a way asking for help. I needed a reminder. I needed some help, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And this just makes me think of, so, you know, at Thrively here, obviously we lead with strengths, every child. And I had a school district again today tell me that a child took the strength assessment and they, you know, again, this is my story too. I had a 7th grader was crying after taking the strength assessment. I went over, I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened? Right. I got down next to this little boy and I said, what's going on? And he looked up at me with these big brown eyes. He said, Miss Simonson, look at all the things I'm good at.
Oh,
right. You know, after you take that strength assessment, you see these 5 things that, you know, are your strengths and this beautiful write-up about yourself. Again, he can take that with him, but it makes me think, then they know their strengths and then they develop a mantra for themselves. They develop a school mantra. I want to build something like that. You all who are listening here, build it, share it, please. I mean, because this collective power, this is great that 3rd graders came up with this. I mean, and you're working on writing. These are English language learners. You're working on expression. Fantastic. Well, I know that you have some other things here.
Yes. And so when you asked me, Jeanette, when we were having this conversation and you were like, well, what would you tell yourself? Like, what would be your affirmations? What do you need to remind yourself of? And I was like, oh man. So I remember taking a few minutes and I was like, I'm gonna write it down real quick. I need to process it. I need to write it down. And so these were the 3 that kind of helped me through that particular situation. So I was like, I need to remind myself, hey, I have talents. I have talents here. I'm knowledgeable. I do know what I'm talking about here. And then the 3rd one was my worth is not defined by others. It's not defined by other people floating around. I have to hold on to that myself. And so being able to kind of put these 3 and kind of capturing them, it gave me the strength. It gave me something to hold on to. And I could again, this was something I kept it on a Post-it and I kept it on my laptop for that whole week. And it's still floating around here on my desk, but this is like the little reminders that we need. So if I'm thinking of a teammate, if I'm having a coaching conversation, like this would absolutely be something that I can do that could, you know, we could have those reminders for ourselves. This is so powerful to do with kids because it helps them to articulate and kind of process all of their feelings, but gives them helps them see their power and control in these situations. Because like we talk about all these different things that we see in the neighborhoods and you know, the news and all, you know, media. We don't have control over a lot of it, but we do have control over these pieces. So I think this was really, really helpful for me as a tool.
Yeah. And, you know, there was a question in here, what strength assessment test do you use? I remember, you know, when we were working in the school district we were working in together, we did an adult version where we got to know each other's, I think it was colors, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, so there's so many things out there for adults. There has been for so long, whether you are doing strengths or you're looking at your personality types. So Thrively.com was founded on the philosophy that every child has a genius and they deserve to thrive. And we know that you cannot thrive unless you know yourself. And so 2 pediatric neuropsychologists out of the state of California, they're amazing, built the first ever strengths assessment for students. It's free, you guys. It's free to every student. I wish every student in the entire nation would take it and at least be able to see beauty. Yes, it's even good for 1st graders. So the kindergarten through 2nd grade one is actually specialized, and they take it with an adult who's known them for a while. And then the 3rd through 12th grade one is is fantastic. You know, the only thing I can say is go on to thrively.com, make yourself your own account and take it yourself. It's still good for adults. You just have to put on your like kid hat a little bit and, you know, think about situations. So, but you can have conversations like, okay, everyone who's appreciative, stand up. Everyone who's academic, stand up. And you do all this, you know, really great things. And I think, you know, this challenge, so Carly's put together this wonderful, some challenges for you guys, and take these back, do them as PDs, do them in your classroom. But tell us a little bit more about this, because I don't know that you could design your mantra without knowing your strengths first.
Yes, yes. So I would definitely, like Jeanette was saying, I would definitely go in and see, because again, like sometimes we see ourselves, we spend all day with ourselves, right? Sometimes it's nice to have something else be like, hey, you're really good at this. And like, oh my gosh, I would have never said that. So when I'm looking at my strength assessment from Thrively, like I wrote them down at the beginning. I am, my top strengths are verbal, assertiveness, compassion, flexibility, and social. And I'm like, wow, maybe social I would have found, but like, I was like, oh, these other two just kind of surprised me. But so I definitely recommend that. But designing a mantra. So again, this can be taken through any different lens. It could be a mantra for you, what you need to hear, what you need to reground yourself in today or this week or this month. It could be from your colleague's standpoint. Again, this is a great thing to do as like a staff, like either a full staff meeting or just like a team agenda. Like we're gonna, we just start with like some type of warm up. This would be a really good one. Like everyone just write down what you need to hear. And then maybe you choose to share, maybe you choose to keep it for you. Or having students do this as a check-in too. This would be a really powerful thing. Or you can co-construct a classroom mantra. So I think this is just a good way to re-engage our humanity a little bit and remind ourselves that we all struggle with different things. And while we have strengths, we also share struggles too. And what one colleague is struggling with, it's possible other people are also struggling with that.
And, leaders who are listening, if you're an administrator, letting them know you're struggling is okay. It actually, I think, honestly, we've had some administrators, you and I, when they come in and they say, listen, I'm struggling with something, I need your help. I'm like, I'm there. I've got her back. I've got his back. And it brings us closer together, so creating this together is amazing. So this is a powerful question, and, certainly not all of us, well, I know I ditched you and left you, moving to Colorado. So, and, this is a struggle for me. I want to be honest with this one. Do I have a teacher bestie? I work in my home. And so I miss that collaboration. And so when I can reach out across the miles, it's like we're building our room again, But what do you want to say about this to our audience?
So I want to mention this because this idea of a teacher bestie, I feel like it's a conversation, like people post about like, oh, thank goodness I have my teacher bestie, or like we're, getting ready for parent teacher conferences or whatever's coming up, right? And you have that one person. But I wrote about it in my book, like Jeanette, she was my teacher bestie. We shared an office together. We weren't in the office all the time, but when we had those moments, it was just like, like you have that one person, right? But I also want to acknowledge there's a lot of different roles in education, and I was one of them, right? Like I was one of like a few EL teachers at certain points, and I felt like I was on an island. And so I want to acknowledge that because I think that many of us struggle with loneliness at work as educators, and we don't talk about it enough. We're on 86 different teams, either at the building level or district level. We're on all these teams. We're with adults all the time. But do you have that one person or a few people? And you might not. And I want you to know, number one, that is okay. But I also want you to know you have options because you deserve to have a network of support. So if you don't have that, down the hall or across the hall, like, we can think about different ways to nurture relationships with those, who are nearby, but we can also think outside the school walls as well.
Yeah. And I think, this goes back to the conversation we had many years ago. If a child has one adult in their life, it changes the trajectory of their life. And I think that's also the truth if you're working in a building or you're working in an environment where you have one person to lean into, that's going to keep you there. You know, we have high teacher, retention issues. And so how do we create that ecosystem? So if you're a leader, if you're somebody who's designing, making sure that, and I think you have some strategies here next, how do we design this? Carly, hey, listen, I don't have a support system. What if I called you today and said that? What are some things that you would recommend for us?
Yes. So I have to say, because I have been in those shoes of saying, like, I feel like I'm on an island. And again, I work with so many people, but I feel like I don't have that one person. It gets a little bit, I will say, it is exacerbated at certain moments throughout the school year. And if Jeanette, you can go to the next slide. I've expressed this idea of like, I just feel like I don't have like a team. And so I said that to an administrator once upon a time, and they said, oh, well, just ask, the second grade team, just ask the fourth grade team. But I felt like I was intruding. I felt like that, like they already had their thing. They already had their routines. They already kind of like had their own group. So, and it's again, exacerbated during certain points of the school year. Halloween is right next week, right? That's right around the corner here. How many of us have like team costumes, or we see team costumes happening in our spaces and we're not a part of it? And we're like kind of left, if you are a school that celebrates Halloween during the day, that can feel very isolating. And then seeing like, okay, well, they have their team meeting and they have their team potluck and they celebrate birthdays as a team and they have a team group chat, all of these different things. And if we're feeling like we're outside of that, it makes it worse. The loneliness is worse, right? And so if you go to the next slide, I want us to get really good at this, because I feel like teachers, we are the first to teach kids that we serve about self-advocacy and the importance of self-advocacy, but we also have to do that for us as well. We have to do that for ourselves. We have to be able to name and identify our feelings and share it. And share it in a way that makes sense, share it in a way that feels comfortable and safe to you. But even when I went on Facebook and I was kind of sharing my like, oh, this was a really bad experience I just had, like, oh, I'm feeling really bad about it. Again, I didn't really notice. I wasn't saying like, this is my cry for help, but it was. And so if I'm able to say like, listen, I'm feeling like this and I need this. Or if I can tell a team or tell a few different, folks in the hallway or in the teacher's lounge, I would love to join y'all for your next potluck or the next birthday celebration or, whatever's coming up. Or just be super honest if you're comfortable and say like, hey, you know what, I kind of feel like I'm on an island. Can I join your PLC? If you have like, a PLC group or professional learning community group, like just be honest and lay your cards on the table and say, and they might not even know. That's the other piece, is again, like we are social beings. But many times if we're kind of like, we're running 1,000 miles a minute, right? We don't always notice, just like our students, right? We look and we see different students who we think are feeling connected. But then when you have a one-on-one conversation, they're like, you know what, I don't feel like I have a buddy, like a peer, or I don't have like a teacher that I know I can go to and I can trust. So sometimes those conversations and those statements and sharing those, it feels vulnerable, it feels uncomfortable, but sometimes that can lead to really powerful moments and opportunities.
Absolutely. Well, these are great. And I think, we had a administrator who served with us for just a couple of months, and there's some really clear things we can do, especially if so first of all, you can take the strength assessment, you can get to know your entire staff, you can find out when their birthdays are, you can find out what kind of food they like, different things about them that are important. And again, so simple, right? Stationery and text messages go a long way.
Yes.
Yeah.
I always say like, I love going to, like the dollar store and things like that, and just buying in bulk, like blank stationery, just always keeping that like at the ready, like in my office or in my teacher desk. Because those are the things, like a handwritten note, it takes 2 seconds, but the impact is huge. Or a quick text message, or like a G chat or a quick email, just like the little moments of like, hey, I saw this GIF or this meme and it made me think of you, or like, take a look at this puppy. I know you love dogs, or, you know, just to like show somebody else in your space that you see them and you know, they're there,
Mhm.
right? And you acknowledge them. And it's just those little connections build up over time. And I think this is just such a powerful thing to do. This is a great thing to do with families that we serve, great
Yeah.
thing to do with our students. And I'll also say this too, because I talk a lot about like appreciation styles. And like, even that's like its own kind of, you know, thing. Like we don't all receive and express appreciation in the same way. And if I'm like a words of affirmation person, like I'll probably express appreciation through words of affirmation, but maybe the other person is more like a thoughtful gift kind of person or active service type of person. So I have to kind of lean into that too, and say, you know, if I'm a person who likes like a public staff meeting shout out, like, you know, that's one way for me to feel seen, but that also might be really like intimidating for somebody else. So those moments of connection, right? Like we want to make sure everybody feels seen and heard and loved and valued.
Yeah. And how simple, right? Ask them how they want to be appreciated. I heard another quote today. It talked about, you know, confidence leads to competence. And, you know, all of what you're talking about here is building the confidence of the people in the building, the students, the staff, the parents. They want to be confident in the school. That builds the competence of the entire community. I know I can't learn when I'm feeling unsafe or judged, you know. So, I mean, this connection piece, and we have a couple challenge cards here, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. But this one's kind of cool. We gotta notice what's going on in this one, right?
Yes. So if you would, I don't know if you're watching right now or if you're watching the replay later, I want you to pull out your cell phone. Pull out your cell phone, really, like truly do it right now, and see like who in your space needs a teammate, who in your space deserves a quick shout out, or who have you not connected with in a while that's on your heart. And right now, just send them a quick message. Takes 10 seconds, but for that other person to be on the receiving end saying, hey, look, like Jeanette just sent me a message, like that just made my day. We don't know, right? Like what other people are experiencing throughout their day or their week. But building those connections through those 10-second exchanges, that's a really powerful moment.
And you know who I'm texting? Our third amigo right now,
Oh,
right? We left him. We left him at the last district. This one I'll take because, and this is thank you to a colleague of mine who has just brought such amazing energy to Thrively. She is a elementary school teacher and has come on staff. She said, you know, she brought this up today. She said, hey, let's do this in the PD with the school district we're going to be doing some live training with. Ask the question, who's on your Mount Rushmore? And one of the things that's part of this, and this is actually and we'll share out this slide deck to you all before we leave, but you think about who's on there and what characteristics do they have that you admire. You could do this as a language arts activity. Who in the book, right? Who in the last 5 books that we've read, who social studies, right? You're digging out people from history. What kind of characteristics do they have that you admire? So, you know, we can connect this to content. But what's really powerful is when you admire someone, you recognize the strength or the disposition they have. And that means that you have it too, because you can recognize it. And I paused in this TED Talk thinking about, yeah, you know, I do have some of those. And sometimes I don't always give myself the pat on the back that I have those abilities or I have those strengths. You talk about imposter syndrome. So challenge yourself. Who would be on your Mount Rushmore? And maybe you do this as an activity with your group or with your students.
I love that so much.
You do a great job of this one.
Oh, so y'all, if you feel like you are on an island, you do not have to be an island anymore. I want you to go online and find your people online because they're there. There are entire communities of folks online. Pick your favorite platform. Maybe you're an Instagram person. Maybe you're a TikToker. Maybe you are on Twitter. Maybe you're on Facebook. Pick the platform that you're most active on and join a group. or start using different hashtags. So the hashtag that we have on the screen, hashtag strive to thrive 22, use that. And just anytime, like, again, if you're like an ELA or a language arts teacher, search a hashtag that has to do with language arts and you'll find your people. And anyone who's tweeting or posting using that hashtag, I want you to just follow them and get into people's DMs, like really, truly, and say, hey, I'm looking for a teammate. That's it. It is that simple. People are willing and wanting to connect. So build up that professional learning network, because you deserve to have a group of people supporting you and cheering you on.
Absolutely. And please feel free. I put both of our Twitter handles. I did that right. Miss Spina's class.
There we go.
Thank you. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I know
No,
she's
you're good.
married, and I didn't even put the extra S. So there you go. The second one. Join. Actually, that's to host and panelists. Let me grab it and put it in for everybody.
Thank you.
You know what? We would love to connect with you all. This is a collaborative effort here. Everything that we do here at Thrively, everything that she does with her organization. I can't say enough about how great. There's just so many little nuggets to take to your classroom. So Carly, thank you you took a risk in writing this book. She came into the office one day, said she wanted to write a book, and she's like, I just don't think I have anything to say. Well, guess what? You have, I don't know how many pages worth of wonderful stories that we can all relate to, we can all learn from. And you know that we've got such a huge population of multilingual learners that we all need to learn how to support more. So please, check out this book. It's really wonderful, and it's got some excellent things that you can take right to the classroom tomorrow. I also have a little gift for everybody who stayed on this long. So I'm going to not only put the link in for this presentation so you can take it back to your classrooms and your staff, but today, join Thrively today. For those that were interested in taking the strength assessment, you can join by logging into thrively.com/join, and then reach out. We've got a Google form here. I'm going to actually escape out of this real quick so I can put it in the chat. And I'll also put this other, but feel free to fill this out. If you share your administrators, you think that something here would be worthwhile that we can have a conversation about and help support your schools, we're going to give you a 20% discount off of the pro licenses. Let me grab this link so that I can share our presentation as well. And please, if anybody would like to stay on and ask some questions or share some of their stories, you're all able to unmute. But I just can't thank Carly enough for being brave and honest and real about everything. Please, I hope the rest of you find that space as well. And thank you for being here. Carly, if you want to wrap up anything too.
Yes. I just want to say thank you so much, and keep doing all that you're doing for kids and your teammates and your families that you serve. We serve so many, but we need to make sure that we're leaning in and pouring into ourselves too. So find that teammate. If you need a teammate, hit us up. Really, truly, seriously, you deserve a teammate. So we are always here.
and I think there's somebody from Colorado Springs. Hey, I am not that far away. I'm an hour. I will meet you halfway and we'll have coffee. Get me out of my house now. But thank you, everybody. Is there anyone who wants to share a story or ask a question at all before we wrap it up? Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Kristen. Wonderful. Well, I wish you all a fantastic week, and take these strategies. Please, Jeanette at thrively.com. Feel free to let us know how some of these strategies have worked out, because if they are working for you, then we'll keep sharing them. And I'm looking forward to hearing all your successful stories. So have a great evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. And for those that are watching, thank you for spending the time with us today. And thank you, Carly, for being amazing.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.